everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of our special series, Tap In with Amrita, where I'm delighted to bring you lessons from the C suite, where we talk to women in leadership and ask them for tangible takeaways and tips about upskilling that we hope you will find helpful as you go forward in your career. So I'm going to, without any further ado, bring on our latest guest. We have Suparna Singh, the former president and CEO of the NDTV group, and someone who's really well known certainly in the media space. Suparna, thank you so much for taking out the time to chat with us today.
Hi, Amrita. Delighted. Really looking forward to this conversation. And many congratulations on launching your own startup. So excited to see where you go with it.
Thank you so much. Suparna, we've had a chance to work together over the years, especially in my last role at Twitter. And as I was saying, in the media industry, you are pretty famous, pretty well known, legendary as a wonderful leader. You were one of the first women we had in this position as a president, as a former CEO. Can you take us through maybe one or two moments you had, like an aha moment in your career where you're like, this is it, I'm going to go for it? Someone recently told us that it seems that for women, sometimes we have a harder time articulating ambition or finding the environment where we can articulate ambition. Can you take us through a little bit of your journey?
Absolutely, Amrita. Most of us at a certain point in our careers or life journey, right, like to believe that as educated, professional women, that we are at a point where we have a lot of confidence and feel we can do whatever we set our minds and hearts to. But I was surprised to find that when I was actually offered the position of CEO in 2017, my immediate instinct was to turn it down because I felt like I didn't have enough experience. And I also felt like I wasn't really sure that is what I wanted to do. And by that, I mean heading all of NDTV. At that point, I'd been heading NDTV Convergence, which was the company's digital arm, right? And I felt like I was still in the process of building that and scaling that with my colleagues, and felt like, I don't know if I want to expand to a bigger role. And I was actually amazed at the fact that I had so much diffidence, about that. And it actually is very much to the credit of my bosses, Pranoy and Radhika, who said, we don't know why you're shirking this. The group needs you to take on this role and you can absolutely do it. And again, I went back and thought about it and said, but I don't have an MBA. This is not really what, I feel my jam is. I feel I'm much more comfortable, doing editorial work. And so there was that incredible self-doubt. And it was when I discussed it further with Pranoy and Radhika, and definitely with my family and with a couple of close friends who said, you've got to step up now and you're ready. And actually the only way now to do it is to actually just do it. And so that was a real aha moment for me, which was to feel like I instinctually was leaning away from the job when actually I should have said, fine, let's give it a go. And, and I'll give it everything I have. And it was after those conversations with close confidants and, like I said, my bosses, that I finally found, the confidence to take it on. And like I said, for me, that was a moment of discovery because I always felt like I was a confident person looking to take on challenges.
That's so interesting. For me, it was a few years ago where I realized I am more ambitious than I think I am, and I want to go for things, So I love that you shared that. How important do you think it is to have that kind of support system, whether it's, peer support, buddies or mentors? How critical is that?
I think it is absolutely the biggest lifeline, that you can have as a woman professional, is to find the people that you trust, both at work and outside work. People who recognize you, and you mentioned peers, and I cannot stress enough how important it was that my peers were both encouraging and 100% supportive once I took on the role. So there could have been some discontent because we were all of a certain, I put it politely, vintage, 20 plus years in the same organization, and so to be promoted from within that group, and it is a group of very, very accomplished people, very talented people. It would not have worked. It could not have worked, Amrita, unless they had said, just go for it. We're here. We trust you, and we're going to back you 100%. As we went further along, there were obviously moments of disagreement, which in my opinion is healthy. In a newsroom and in a news environment, if you don't have differences of opinion and disagreements, then you're not doing something right. But I think the incredible sort of support, what it distilled down to was the kind of trust factor and both sides saying to each other that, we could do this together, right? And that's not a platitude. It's not something that I'm making up, but I really felt that every single day on the job. And it was a tough job. When I took over, we were bleeding. We'd been in losses for several years. There were a bunch of very tough decisions that had to be taken very quickly. And honestly, I could not have implemented those unless the people who I worked with and who surrounded me were 100% on board with, if not my decision, then with my leadership, right? And they said, okay, well, this is your job. You tell us, and we'll figure it out. So cannot stress enough how important it is to surround women with that sort of support and with that kind of trust.
And can I ask you, what are one or two myths or misconceptions when it comes to women and leadership? I mean, you're talking about essentially turning a media empire around. Like you're talking about actual numbers. There's certainly hard decisions to be made, as you said. Do you feel that any misconceptions or rather stereotypes about women and leadership that you'd like to take on?
Yeah, I think, Amrita, it's the obvious ones, right? And I think that, women leaders try so hard to chip away at that. These are, decades worth of sort of, bias built in. So I think a couple of things is, one, that women leaders can be manipulated, by people around them, right? And if you push back against that or make it clear that you can't, in fact, be manipulated, then the takeaway can often be, oh, well, this is a very aggressive person, which you would never say. For a man, it's decisive. For a woman leader, it's aggressive. For a woman leader, it's calculated. For a man, it's strategic. So these kind of biases, 100%, can be quite detrimental. And I think, you just kind of at that point have to just go by your instinct, go by your gut, and figure the way out to just, plow through that. So there'll be noise around you, which says, oh, you're being too aggressive, or sometimes the converse to that can be you're being too much of a softie. But I think the interesting thing was recognizing that EQ doesn't have to be seen as a sign of weakness, right? So as an example, within, I think, my first month on the job, we had to do layoffs, which were very difficult. These were people I had grown up with, worked very closely with. And as you and everybody knows, layoffs are always such complicated, hurtful procedures, but are often very much what is needed, So I chose to sit in on every single one of those interviews, exit interviews of people who we had to let go of. And more often than not, Amrita, the people who were being let go of cried. I cried. And I do remember one of our HR executives at the time saying, you need to pull it together, because this is more difficult on the people who are exiting than you, and you need to be solid for them. And I did try in a couple of, those sessions. And then I just thought, why? It is hurtful to me. It's hurtful to them as well. And it's okay to let, sort of your humanness kind of seep to the forefront and to accept that this is just a crappy situation to be in. And in that, I feel there was a whole new sort of construct of bonding. And many of those people, to date, reach out and, offer advice and support. And they very generously offer coffees, and it was sort of that kind of embracing what being a woman leader is about rather than pushing back against it, right? And so again, it comes back to go by your gut and, trust your skills and your instinct to lead you in the right direction. I don't know if that kind of makes sense.
No, 100%. And I have to say that's definitely a better experience than many of my former colleagues had. I think how you handle layoffs says so much about, you as a leader. Like you said, it's a very difficult time for everyone.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a little bit. I mean, I was, asking Shreyasi Singh this of Harappa. We all know so many journalists. I want to ask you this question because often times I hear from journalists who want to transition out of journalism, perhaps, which is itself, rather sad to see, but many of us have done that. They're not really sure, some of these journalists, what are their skills that are transferable? So could you share a little bit from your point of view, a good journalist, what would be some skills you think that they could keep in mind and, center around as they look to transition?
Oh, for sure. So, at the heart of, journalism, right, is storytelling. And there is no business, there is no sector in which a story is not important. The wonderful thing about journalists is that their stories are built on fact, or at least for the good ones they are, right? And so to be able to build a narrative which engages the user, and by that, I am consciously using the term user as opposed to viewer. So because I think of journalists as multimedia sort of storytellers, right? So if you can construct a narrative that hooks the user, that engages them, that matters to them, that gets them invested at some level, then you are very much of use to any sector. The other thing is that most journalists, initially perhaps with some reluctance, the younger ones of course have fully embraced it. If you are capable of operating on different platforms, then it doesn't matter if you switch out of television and into digital, or out of conventional digital and into new age digital, right? There are incredible skills to be valued in a journalist. And again, that is being conscious of facts and of telling good stories well. And increasingly, Amrita, as more and more content competes for our bandwidth in being able to tell a story concisely, right? And for old school journalists like myself, when we were taught journalism, it was 101, right? Can you explain your story in 2 sentences? If you are launching a new enterprise, can you explain what your enterprise does and stands for in 1 sentence? And it's amazing. It's actually quite tough when you try to distill it down to that, right? But a good journalist can do that effortlessly. And so those are skills that are highly transferable to all sectors. The other thing is that, as you know now, every business wants to engage with its potential customers at a content level, right? So they all upfront content, whether it is a chain of hotels, whether it is somebody that is trying to sell you an iPhone. They all want to create a sort of watering hole which draws customers to them first for content, and then can potentially lead to a transaction, whether that transaction is a subscription to that content, whether it is to booking a hotel room, like I said, or to buying that iPhone. Everybody wants to use content to sort of engage first and foremost with their user. And that's why journalists can be of so much value, in again helping to build that story which straight away gets a user's attention. So much respect for journalists, and like you, it saddens me that so many are switching out of journalism at this time. But the good thing is that the skill set is of value in so many different areas, and it's interesting to see how many journalists, are switching to platforms where they are reliant only on themselves in many ways. So we have former colleagues of mine, and I'm sure many of yours, who are now doing, YouTube reportage and are doing it very well, and are seeing considerable traction. So I think that the world, because of technology, gives us now so many different avenues into which we can expand and actually operate on different platforms simultaneously, which a good journalist has been doing. Whether they worked at a broadcast network in terms of doing digital storytelling, or if they worked at a digital platform where they were doing storytelling through videos. So all these are incredibly good skill sets. Not to overlook the importance of being very sort of engaging on social media, which a lot about through your previous avatar at Twitter.
Yes, and I always loved how good journalists have been at taking to social, like you said, knowing how to, really distill the essence of a story,
Yeah.
talk about the news peg.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you just a couple of questions, and then we'll let you go. One is, it's no secret that this is a pretty daunting time, in the economy when it comes to the job market. For those of us who've, I guess, those of us who are vintage, to use your lovely word, there are cycles like this, right? Do you have any advice for folks? I think especially women, mid-career professionals who are looking for a job in what's quite a daunting atmosphere. Any tips that you think would make them maybe stand out as ideal candidates?
Sure. I think the most important thing, is to own that confidence and to not be shy of expressing it, right? I have interviewed some really top-notch women, sort of journalists, producers, and I find that in interviews, Amrita, somehow male candidates always come across as so much more confident. The women candidates are by far the more equipped. You can sense their talent. but they tend to be a little bit shy of saying, I'm your person, right? So one thing would be that in a job market, which is tough, to really come across as owning that confidence. And the second thing is to, really stay in touch with other women. And I have found this to be true of my own career that, there's this myth, and I've often spoken about it, which is still surprisingly, part of the discourse, which is that, women tend to be petty and sort of, there's this rivalry. And, in the older days, it used to be called a cat fight. Now I'm sure they have new terms for it. But that is absolutely, none of that is true. The greatest support in my career has come from other women, both within NDTV and outside NDTV. And I have found so much joy and satisfaction and inspiration in reaching out to them often, right? And that is not a sign of weakness, in reaching out and saying, hey, we spoke X number of months ago. This is what I'm looking to do. Just wanted to make sure that, I know you're busy, but, I wanted to make sure that you don't forget about me. What can I do to sort of get this job that I want? Or do you know of any leads that I can follow up on? So to really use that network of women to find what you want to do and to help you get it. And that's why I think networks like yours, Amrita, what you are launching, can be of so much use. It is surprising to me that there are still such few formal avenues for women to networking, right? And actually, when you start talking, you find that so many women have gone through the same challenges, whether it is balancing work life, a career and children, or just other things, fighting an inbuilt gender bias at work. I was very lucky that I worked at an organization and I led an organization which was tremendously supportive of women and promoted them to key positions, and therefore those of us who've been in those positions, we're very actively looking to help other women grow. And so the most important thing is to find that network of people and reach out. And you would be surprised, even if you cold call or email somebody that you don't know. I know personally, I have always made the time to respond to women who've reached out, because it's important to me. So I would say, be open, be frank, and be persistent. Above all, be confident of your merit.
Yeah, confidence does seem to be that underlying attribute sometimes we need to work on. And I think it's so helpful, like you said, if we have a network we can fall back upon. You have people who have your back, who are cheering you on. That's super helpful. We'll end with one question finally, Suparna. In your industry, as you choose to define it, what's one thing you're excited about this year, or one trend you're looking forward to exploring more?
I think that it's interesting to see how many people are now setting up companies of their own, which is terribly exciting, because there's just so much creativity. I can feel that buzzing in the air. And I know that there is this funding winter, and everybody's sort of worried about can we actually get the capital that it takes to make our ventures successful. But I think that it's a terribly exciting time, seeing so many people now getting into this space, using technology, talking a lot about AI, and not just using it as a buzzword, but really exploring the full potential of it. And I think one of the advantages of people who are doing it at a slightly more mature phase in their lives, let's say, is that they're using technology with an aim of really trying to make things better, right? So using technology responsibly, and not just for commercial success, but really trying to look at how they can use technology to sort of improve people's lives, and to sort of make things more equitable, in a sense, to to give everybody more access to good product. And to me, that's so terribly important. So I think that's one terribly interesting thing to watch. And it's just nice to see people sort of have all these creative juices that are now that they're now unleashing upon the world. Really good time. I'm very excited.
I love that. And hopefully that bodes well for all of us who are trying to build right now. Suparna, thank you so much, as always, for taking out the time. Thank you for being such an authentic leader, and for leading with empathy, and for sharing some of your tips with our audience.
Thank you so much, Amrita. I just want to reiterate that if any of your viewers need help or would like some advice, for whatever it's worth, absolutely I'm available, and would love to help out in any way.
That's so nice. Okay, any of you watching this, you can reach out to us. I've put our email, and we'll make sure that Suparna gets eyes on your message. Thanks so much. If you've been, thanks, Suparna.
Thanks so much, Amrita. Really appreciate it, and good luck with your own venture.